So let's now go to the legal update, the insurance update. It's basically a legal update from Helen, Adrian, and Sophie. Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I'll just briefly introduce this update before I hand over to Adrian Seeger to take you through a bit more detail. So just the couple of key points to inform you about today. That is, the concept design for restoration of the trickling filters is now complete. This has been a complicated process. This is a complex piece of critical infrastructure, as you know. The next step is for the preliminary and detailed design to take place. We're not yet in a position to give you a timescale for that piece of work, but when it's known, we will inform the committee, either in the next report or separately. I know this is frustrating, but we are doing everything we can to progress the restoration of the trickling filters. And just one last point before I hand over to Adrian. I am aware that there have been some reports in the media that suggest that the insurance claim is holding things up. I really want to emphasise, and I know I've said this before, that it takes time to do this work. Insurance is not holding anything up. This is a complex piece of infrastructure, and it's important that we get the restoration right. And on that, I will hand over to Adrian.
Morning, everyone. Okay, so this, as Helen said, is another update on the status of the insurance claim. It includes only the information that we can share publicly at this stage without prejudicing the claim. The claim process is being overseen in some detail by the insurance subcommittee under its terms of reference. Just a reminder of what's in these reports is the status of the insurance claim and the next steps. We are not covering the immediate response, anything operational, the implementation of the findings from the independent review, or the adaptive recovery plan. However, we will be updating that plan as we get the timeframes clarified that Helen just referred to. I think it's important to remind everybody here what our insurance entitlement is, and the process we're going through is to ensure that we are getting what is properly payable to us under that policy wording. So as the report says, and up there, we're entitled to the cost of the repairs of the damage, including to comply with any laws such as health and safety, Building Act, that sort of thing, and the additional costs of working, so the costs of the temporary solution. One key thing to note, and this is why it is such a lengthy process on this size critical infrastructure, is a commercial or a corporate insurance policy is different from a residential policy that most people will be used to, where under the residential policy, your insurer will manage and undertake the work and pay the contractors or pay you a cash settlement. Under a corporate policy, we have to identify the damage, what it will take to restore it, reach agreement with that with the insurer, and then carry out the restoration, pay for it, and then get reimbursed. There's no, under the policy wording, there's no entitlement for us to a cash settlement as of right. Should we choose not to restore the damage, that then has an impact on what we will be able to claim under the policy. Hence why we are undertaking this lengthy process of identifying what is needed and the estimated costs of it. Oops, a little too far. Okay, so in terms of the restoration, as we've updated you over the last couple of quarterly meetings, we've been working through a series of workshops to develop a concept design for restoring the trickling filters. That's involved operational and planning staff from the Three Waters team, external engineering advisors and quantity surveyors, legal and finance staff, and then we've also had involved engineering advisors and loss adjusters representing the insurer, so they've been involved in this process all along. As we've been working on this concept design, we've been looking at current best practice, modern equivalents, materials and equipment, and safety standards in that repair methodology. A couple of examples here in this presentation that have been identified as best practice now compared to back in the 70s when these were initially constructed. There's fiberglass secondary supports for the filter media to sit on. They are more corrosion resistant than concrete, so over the life of the asset will not require the maintenance that a concrete structure would. And then the picture on the right is an aluminium cover rather than the previous glass reinforced plastic or fiberglass that was there, and that's because of maintenance issues over the life of it. Again, everyone who's building a trickling filter is putting an aluminium cover on it because that is the modern equivalent to what was previously done, being the fiberglass, which, as we have seen, has its disadvantages. As we've worked through this concept design, we've worked closely with the operational team, so Adam and his team of engineers and staff down at the plant, to look at any operational improvements that might be put in place as we restore. Some examples of that are improved access for maintenance, additional instrumentation and control so that they can read the performance of the filters remotely rather than someone having to go up there and take a reading. These are allowed for the Three Waters renewal budget for the treatment plant, has allowance for these in the budget, but there's not been any decisions made yet on what to include. Those items will come back to council for consideration once the detailed design is complete. Throughout the process, as I said, we've had quantity surveyors along with our engineers working on what the costs of that concept design may be. That is still in a draft and will continually be updated. A copy of that is currently with our insurer for their experts to do a review on. And as we've previously mentioned, we've been benchmarking the trickling filters across against another secondary treatment process. Again, just making sure we are getting the best outcome for the community in the long term. The next steps, as Helen mentioned, we're about to undertake the detailed design process. This is refining the concept design down to specific requirements. So a simple way of looking at it is, if you're building a new house, you have the architect's drawings and floor plans. That's your concept design. And then you get down to the stage of where are your PowerPoints going to be, where's your TV going to be, as you know, you're going to hang it on the wall. That's that level. So that's effectively what we're doing next, is going down to the specific requirements. Again, that's going to have input from the operational planning staff of Three Waters, the external engineering advisors and quantity surveyors, legal and finance, again, just keeping an eye on what is entitlement under the policy, and then the loss adjuster and engineering advisors who are representing the insurers. So the procurement of that detailed design is underway at the moment, and a plan for procuring the contractor for restoration is also underway, so that as soon as that design is completed, we can get boots on the ground. Ahead of the detailed design, there's some further minor investigations going on that we referred to in the report. They are looking at part of the concrete structures, the drain channels, ground conditions under it, just to improve our understanding of what's there. There was a lot of geotech work done, obviously, post-earthquake, so it's really updating that to make sure that in the about 10 years now, nothing has changed significantly in what is there and our understanding of it. One thing that's not on this slide, which we have been undertaking recently, is discussing also with the comms team how best we can communicate this to the public. Obviously, we've had this is the third quarterly report of process and what's been going on. We're just talking about the best way now, how we can get this information out to the community in potentially a different format, just to make it easier for them to access than having to go into an agenda and find a report and that sort of thing. And there we go. I mean, it's pretty brief, but open to questions now.
So we'll do questions. Nia's happy to move it, and Yanni's happy to second it. Yep, cool. Okay. Tim, and then Yanni.
With regards to the communication, it'd be really good for they probably are anyway, our team to liaise with the local community board. That's really, I think, the key to it. Thank you.
We'll pass that on.
Yeah, because I mean, no disrespect, but to the people outside, like on the outskirts of town, but those that are immediately affected are really the important ones to get hold of. We have the same problem with cycleways and other things. So.
Yep.
Thanks, Councillor.
Might also be useful to liaise with the local councillor. For example, we just put out an update on Monday that didn't reference this, even though this was public information. So, yeah, it'd be quite good just to tighten up on that if we can. I just wanted to check so you've talked about the next steps, and I know you've kind of said that the independent review is outside of the scope, but then the independent review kind of recommended in terms of next steps, setting up a liaison group around the future of what was going to be done. So when I look at your next steps, there's no reference to a work program to do that. Am I able to ask if that is underway or if that's been considered? Or is that completely separate to all the input that's coming in from all the other...
It might be something we need to take offline with John Filsell, I suspect. That might be a...
Yes, it's beyond what we can answer today.
Right.
So if we can take that offline and see what we can provide the committee.
Okay, but at what stage will the community or the public, but particularly the people that are most impacted by it, at what point will they have visibility of what's being proposed and what the time frame is for it being done?
So as I said earlier, we're not in a position to give timescales at this stage, and it would be potentially misleading to estimate those timescales. When we're in a position to give definite timescales, we'll provide those. That's as far as I'm afraid I can take that today, Councillor.
Right, but there must be some sort of, like, we're procuring the work for a contractor. We can't even have dates of when that procurement will
Yeah, I think that's been asked and answered. We can't. We're not in a position to give dates at the moment. But it is, I've repeated at the last meeting and the one before, because the only thing we can, as soon as we can tell people, we will. Yeah, it's not like people are just sitting around waiting. It's all being lined up. Yeah, nothing's being delayed at all. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried.